and over and over and over again. Just give up and let me cut you down already!
What's going on, guys? Logan JYA here, and 2014, also known as hat format, is by far my favorite alt format to play. Today, we're going to check out my undefeated Infernity deck profile that helped me win not one, but two different Time Wizard OTS tournaments. If you want to see modern Infernity, let me know in the comments section down below, and be sure to leave a comment so you can enter in to win a free pack. Let's get to it. Okay, my friends, it's time to wind back that clock to the year 2014, 11 years ago. Well, not really full 11 years, but you get the idea. April 2014 format is one of my favorite alternate formats to play. It's also known as hat format, even though hat is not the best deck of the format. Infernity is the best deck of that format, and I'm going to show you guys my undefeated Infernity deck profile from multiple locals here in our New Jersey area. We got some cool shops out in the line. Check out the description if you want to see where they're hosting these hat tournaments. And if you guys want to see more hat content, my boy XCKJ and I are going to be putting together a heck of a lot more of it going forward. This is a killer alt format, and we also do it on a live stream from time to time as well. But I promise you guys I would show you the Infernity deck profile that I went undefeated with not once but twice at these local tournaments. I'm going to keep it relatively quick because these are all old cards, so if you're not familiar with them, there are ample amounts and opportunities to learn what these cards do. And if you really want to see them in action, come through the live stream or check out some of the commentated matches that both myself and XCKJ are going to have going up in the near future. But now I've rambled on enough. Let's check out this list. And again, this is 2014, which means there's a lot of cards in here that are legal that are no longer legal now. There's a lot of cards that exist today that sure as heck didn't exist back in the day. So keep that in mind as we go through the list. But diving right in, of course you're playing triple copies of Infernity Archfiend. This guy, the man, the myth, the legend, he is the namesake of the deck. He is your guy who you rip off of the top in a losing situation and your opponent just groans and moans in absolute depression. It feels good, it feels great. Not once per turn, you're going to be looping him 2 to 3 to 4 to 5 times, 6 times in a turn. That's just the way we do things. Next, you got 2 copies of Necromancer. This is your Reborn, Inarchetypal Reborn, bringing back those Archfiends from the graveyard. I wouldn't play any more than 2, otherwise you're going to brick on them. But 2 are essential. You may also be overlaying these guys going into the Leviair. Worst card in the deck by far, always finds a way into my hand, Mrs. Archfiend Eris. Bro, I honestly would love to put one in between her eyes because she is such a degenerate, always winding up in my hand. You know what they say, Eris in hand equals game lost. Well, guess what? Sometimes they're right. You really never want to draw this card because it is so challenging to work around when you have this in your hand. Not just for the fact that you can't use its effect to search Archfiend in the way that you want to, but also because it's so clunky to get out. It's just such a pain in the butt. So F this card, but we got to play it because it searches Archfiend and another target we have in deck as well. Moving on, triple copies of Stygian Street Patrol. Some people choose to play 2. Well, guess what? They're wrong. We like playing 3, especially for going second. This is one of the main cards and ways that we have of pushing into the opponent's boards. And of course, this lets you summon out your fiend monsters from hand. Primary one being Archfiend. Oftentimes, you also use this to summon your Necromancers when you're searching them going through your combo. But also super vital for making our Excite-On plays when we're going second. The Warrior package, listen, I'm doing 2 Grepher and 1 Armageddon Knight. This might be a little bit controversial for some of our Infernity fans out there. A lot of people actually swap these. I like having Grepher because it helps empty out the hand. Generally speaking, I like having more copies of Grepher. But there have been a few times where I've been burned by the fact that I've either already used the Grepher or would have preferred a Grepher to be an Armageddon Knight, so you might want to swap these ratios. Point is, it's up to you, but this is the one that I'm choosing to rock with. 2 Grepher, 1 Armageddon Knight. And going along with them, these are our warriors. We got another searchable target for it, that being the Photon Thrasher. This guy is 21, he's big. He's a free special summon that you can also search off of Rhoda in case you don't need to go for Grepher or Arma. Speaking of extenders, we do play 1 additional extender, this weird mofo, Mr. Dinotherium, a free special summon from hand. He's got a downside. Your opponent can special summon a level 4 monster from their graveyard if they have one. Doesn't matter on turn 0. In a late game situation, if they have 4s in grave, yes, it can come up tough, but generally speaking, it's still pretty cool to get to play this guy. He helps you extend further into your boards. He is a generic extender like the Photon Thrasher, like Instant Fusion. It's just good to have. And then finally, we got 2 copies of Summoner Monk. This card's at 2 for a reason, but oh my god, is it insane. This is another way that we can go into the Excite-On Nights going second if we're able to resolve it. Oftentimes, you're going to be summoning an Archfiend if you got nothing else in your hand, or you're going to be summoning the Armageddon Knight to dump your Stygian, especially some of that Archfiend that's chilling in your hand right now, overlaying into your Lavalval Chain and letting the fun begin. So this card's broken. It's at 2 for a reason. I will say this, though. When they chain max seeded this effect, it feels pretty bad. Moving on to the spell cards, 1 copy of the Infernity Launcher. It's at 1. This is your inarchetypal Soul Charge, summon back 2 Infernities from the graveyard. And speaking of Soul Charge, in this format, what is one of the defining cards of the format? Well, it's Soul Charge, which is at 3. Recently had come out at the time, and oh my god, this is the deck that abuses it better than any other. Don't at me, you know it's a fact. Infernity abuses Soul Charge the best out of all the 2014 decks. Why? Because you're going to use it to continue to loop off your Infernities, climb through your Xyz lines, pop off your own crap just so you can make room to summon more. It's crazy. So of course you max out and play all 3. We also max out the Instant Fusion. It's a generic extender. It's also a spell card we can pitch for the Summoner Monk. Next, we got triple copies of the Upstart Goblin, another potential pitch for the Summoner Monk, and a consistency card. Hoban Logic, we're playing a 37-card deck. Gotta love it. Although, ironically, at the time of this format, Hoban was playing Sylvans like an unfortunate fool. I don't know why he was doing that. That deck sucks. Then we got triple copies of MST blowing out that back row. There's a lot of back row matchups, so yeah, you want to be prepared for it. This is one of the few ways that we actually prepare for it in the main deck. I got more of them in the side. Just be cautious, don't hit those artifacts. And then we got a heck of a lot of one-ofs, okay? I'm going to run through them real quick. 1 copy of the Foolish Burial, broken. 1 copy of Roto, you know our targets, we talked about them earlier. 1 copy of Bracco Negro, aka Dark Hole, the blow of the board. 1 copy of Book of Moon in the main, not a bad side-out target, but also a generically good going first or second card. 1 copy of Allure of Darkness, a little bit of draw power, paired off with the final spell card being the 1 copy of the Archfiend Palabyrinth. This is a field spell that is an interesting extension effect. Sometimes this is how you get your last search for some of your Infernity trap cards. It's also a massive boost to all of your Archfiends or your Fiends on the board of 500 attack points, which can help you clean out games. So I do like having this as our secondary Archfiend Eris search target. And then finally, we got our trap cards, triple copies of Infernity Break, the 1 copy of the Barrier. This is why Infernity is crazy. It's one of the very few decks that is actually setting up a plethora of hard stop interruptions on turn 0. Not many decks at the time could do this. Sylvan at most was putting up maybe 2 hard stop interruptions in the form of a Felgrand and maybe another Xyz monster, maybe a Giant Hand, something like that. YuGiOh can kind of do it as well. Most other decks are relying on hard-drawn purple cards. Well, guess what? We get to combo off and search our purple cards, which is why I think Infernity is so crazy in this format. And then the last card, card number 40, is 1 copy of Solemn Warning. This is the best generic trap card, in my opinion, in this format, and this is our 40th card. There are other builds, and you'll find a lot of 2014 Infernity builds that choose to cut some cards from the main deck to make room for triple copies of Vanity's Emptiness as a backup plan in case you get max seed into certain matchups. I don't think Vanity's Emptiness is worth maining, unfortunately, because there are so many control matchups that you're going to find yourself playing into where it's just not very high impact. Instead, I think it has a home in the side, but that's just my opinion. Let me know if you disagree. Extra deck, moving on the extra deck, we got triple copies of the Lavalval Chain. Listen, this is another one. You could theoretically cut this out to 2, but I like having access to all 3, especially if you end up finding yourself in a grind scenario. You might need that extra dump later on. Or you might also need to use the 3rd Lavalval Chain to stack your deck. And that's another thing I want to mention, guys. One of my favorite combos in 2014 Infernity is not using Lavalval Chain Send effect, which is, of course, what we want to use it for, is Foolish Burial. But yes, I like playing triple Lavalval Chain. Next, we got 2 copies of Excite on Night. Maybe I should sell this copy since the Ryziel deck is being degenerate and choosing to play this card. But not even for the cool reason. When we played this card, it was to blow out our opponent's entire fields. And guess what? No one ever sees the second one. I feel like Madara when I break out the second Excite on Night after the opponent deals with the first one. But what will you do about the second one? Nobody sees it coming, so play 2 Excite on Nights. It's absolutely phenomenal. Speaking of 2-ofs, we got another 2 Diamond Direwolves. Why? Because sometimes on turn 0, you're going to need to blow out your own cards. To make room on your field, you're going to pop this and a Lavalval Chain, reload the graveyard, resolve something like an Infernity Launcher or a Soul Charge, get the searches that you need. You got to fill up your back row as well as your front row, and sometimes you got to make room to do it. But of course, Diamond Dire is also generic removal going into the opponent's board as well. Next, we got a bunch of 1-ofs. We got the 1 copy of the Silent Honor Arc, the big Mr. Suck. Follow that up with the Black Ship of Corn, great for dealing with the hands. Another way of dealing with the hands, Abyss Dweller, just negate them. Also good into the Lightsworn matchup, any Dragon Ruler variants. One copy of the Master Key Beetle, Master Key Baiter, yes sir. Oftentimes you'll find yourself in games 2 and 3 when you know you're going first, comboing this off with something like a degenerate card known as Vanity's Emptiness. Yes, it is a combo that we do. We build a giant ass board and then summon this guy, target our back row. What is that back row we're targeting? It's Vanity's Emptiness. To the dismay of the opponent, they're getting eviscerated. They can't pop it. They get cooked. Feels good for us. But if you just want to end on this monster more generically speaking, you can target something like Launcher or one of your Infernity monsters on field that you just want to protect. You'll never catch me not playing Gaga Cowboy, okay? Sometimes you got to take out those last bit of life points with our boy here. And sometimes, in Infernity in particular, you're going to be swinging in with like a bunch of 1800 attack point guys. You're just going to be shy for game. And then what do? You say sayonara to that last bit of life points. You summon this guy, and the opponent scoops him up. One more one of in the XCs department, we got Leviair the Sea Dragon. You know this combos well with Mr. Necromancer, but we also do play Instant Fusion, so we got a target to make it as well. Whatever you want, it could be any level 3, you could do Fusionist. I'm doing this Dragon guy, he's a warrior, it doesn't really matter that much. And then the last card we got to play is a level 4 target for the Instant Fusion as well. Go with what you want. I think there's a better one, I can't remember its name, it might have a little bit more attack points, I think that's the only real difference, or maybe it's a Fiend or something. This one is also a Dark Monster though, so I think they both work. And plus this copy is cool. It's like a first edition LOB. So come on. I'm gonna play this one. I think it's sick. Anyway, that's it for the extra deck. One final thing I'm going to show you is the 2014 side deck, and I like showing this one off. So without further ado, let's dive in. Starting things off with a 1 copy of Mind Control for when you're going second, generically speaking. It feels great to steal problematic things. Level 4s, turn them into your own rank 4s. It's crazy. Also doing 2 copies of the Forbidden Chalice. Why? So we can stop artifacts. This is when you're going second into the artifact matchup, and they're going to... A lot of people nowadays who play artifacts are playing Scythe, and that can be an absolute game ender for you. So I love siding in Chalice to hit things like Moraltac or the Scythe if they're degenerate enough to bring it in. I'm also playing 2 copies of Night Beam in the side deck for more generic spell and trap removal, good into the Gear matchup. They can't chain that one that summons 2 from deck. Phenomenal. Next, you got 2 copies of Debunk. This is going to do a lot of different matchups. Your Dragon Rulers, anything that's triggering Engrave. It's also a means of negating the Maxi. There's only so many of those that you can do in this format, so this is another good one. And it stops the hands as well. So if you're establishing your board and you have one of these set in your back row, sometimes your opponent's going to try and just swing into you with hands and start breaking your board that way. And that can be tricky if you either they baited your Infernity Barrier and you've only got breaks left, and then they summon a hand. You're like, ah, crap, what am I going to do? If you got Debunk, you don't got to worry about it. Triple copies of Trap Stun. Now, Hat format is a very trap-heavy format, generally speaking. So, what are we going to do? When we're going first or second into those matchups, sometimes we just side in the Trap Stun. Slow down the game or turn off all the back row entirely, invalidate their entire game strategy, and win that way. Next, I invoked its name earlier, triple copies of the Vanity's Emptiness, a broken degenerate card that will never come back. It stops special summoning. It's unfair, okay? It's that unfair. If you've ever read this card, take a second to read it right now, okay? I'll put it up here. Give it a read real quick. Okay, now you know why it's broken, right? You see what I'm talking about? Yeah, this card's never coming back in the TCG. But at this format, it was at 3. Here's the deal. It's not good into every matchup. Some of those slower, more control matchups, like Hat in particular, this card's not very good into it. But then you got decks like Sylvans, or you got decks like Dragon Ruler, or Light Swarms, where you're like, oh yeah, I want to bring this guy in, and I want to protect it with a Key Beetle. Speaking of, when you're playing into a matchup that this card is good against, and you draw it, and you get hit with the Max C, your game plan should be is to turbo out Key Beetle as fast as possible and just protect this Vanity's Emptiness. Such a good, clean backup plan. Very simple. Our last 2 cards that I got space for in this extra deck, I think you could probably swap these out if you wanted to. I didn't want to not play this card, so I'm actually siding an extra deck monster, that one being Rhapsody and Berserk. Good, or sometimes better, into the Lightsworn matchup, so you can pick off things like Dragon Rulers or Lightsworn names. So I like having access to him, even though he is just chilling in the side. And then the last card I choose to play, which is very similar vein to the Rhapsody, which I'm showing at the same time, is the Transmigration Prophecy. It's a one-of trap card they can use to shuffle in 2 cards from the graveyard back into the deck. So it's going to be good in a lot of matchups that the Rhapsody is good in as well. And sometimes, rare situations, maybe you want to put back some of your own targets and use them again. So it can theoretically do that. Just be aware of that. But that is it for my 2014 Infernity profile. Undefeated not once but twice at 2 different OTS local tournaments that were running the Hat Time Wizard format. If you love old formats as much as I do, we're going to be creating a heck of a lot more content about them. Let me know in the comment section down below. Leave a like to let me know that you enjoyed this. And if you want to see a modern day Infernity profile, I'll tell you what, I suck at the deck nowadays. It's very hard to play. It is challenging. You think this deck was hard to play in 2014? Try playing it today. It is freaking challenging. But I will do it for you. If you want to see it, I'll do it for you. Tell me in the comment section down below. Don't forget to comment so I can enter you into the giveaway. With all that being said, Logan JYA sign off. Have a great day. I'll see you beautiful people later. Peace.